Good evening, patriots and truth seekers. Welcome to another episode of We Want Answers, brought to you by the return of Cappy. And tonight is a momentous night. But before we get started, my name's Big Sean. That's Dave. On the bottom right is John. And we want to welcome you to a special edition. We are live tonight with the gentleman I'm going to introduce right now. I want to welcome to the show and give an opportunity to tell everybody just who he is. Please welcome everybody, Seven C's.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, everybody, and really appreciate the opportunity here. I'm excited to dive into some stuff today.
As am I, man. You showed up on my feed like I want to say about like a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
I saw some of your research you were digging into, and I just clicked on your page, and I'm like, man, this dude's going hard. Like it's not just a little tweet. Like you're digging deep into your research, which I respect, and that's the kind of people I wanted to get on the show here. So again, thanks for coming on.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, man. So how did you get into all this? Like, when did this all start for you? When did you decide you were gonna take down the deep state, the quote unquote deep state?
That's it. Actually, it's kind of a funny story because I've always sort of had like a problem with authority, even when I was a kid. Like my parents trying to get me to do anything, teachers, bosses, as I like got older and stuff like that. And so authority is always just like I don't want anybody telling me what to do. I don't think anybody has the right to tell anybody else what to do. You know, as long as you're not hurting anybody or anything like that. And I would say during high school was when I watched the movie Zeitgeist, and that kind of like woke me up. The whole 9/11 thing, the Federal Reserve stuff, and then as I hit my 20s, I just kind of fell out of it. Kind of became more occupied with like life, getting my first couple of jobs and stuff,
Yeah.
being able to drive. And then, as everything started to happen with like 2016, got back into like the political sector a little bit. I'd already known about things like the Rothschilds and like the Clinton Foundation up to that point, and it was kind of like this eye-opening thing to see like all these people get involved with politics. So I was like, okay, I need to figure out like who is this Bernie Sanders guy? Why is Donald Trump of all people running? And so started to dig into those things. And it wasn't really until because all that stuff is sort of like surface level politics. It's mostly just theater. Just keep the masses distracted and convince them that they have like a say in what's going on.
And I think more people are waking up to that as we speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, you talk about like the Diebold machines and Smartmatic and Dominion and all that stuff. Like, it's just a giant backdoor. They get to decide everything, especially since they've gone electronic. But it wasn't really until COVID that I kind of began to understand like the scale of just how compromised everything is. Seeing that company or countries that we're supposed to be like adversarial with are marching in lockstep with us. And it's the same like draconian policies, lockdowns, masking, pushing vaccines on people. And that's where I was kind of opened my eyes a little bit and said, this seems to be way more grandiose than I've ever been able to kind of arrive at on my own. And it was probably about a year after COVID, where I was just kind of getting back into like jobs and stuff. COVID was ending. We were all getting back to like normal life, if you can call it that. And I was working at a job that was halfway decent. It was like the best job I ever had up to that point. And basically they were doing some stuff I didn't agree with, and so I decided to quit and realized, like, looking back, every job I've ever had, I always got punished for like doing the right thing or trying to call out things that are corrupt or anything like that. And it seems like this space is really the only place to kind of do that. So I just decided, like, I'm going to go into work for myself. Started doing like video game streams and just like real normie content, like slop. And as I was going, I was like, I want to start incorporating like politics a little bit. And then Butler happened. So the Trump assassination, which I put in quotes because I'm under the belief that it was all entirely staged, which happy to get into. But it was a day. It was
Please.
either that day or the day after that he taps JD Vance to become his vice president. And I had never heard of him prior to that, and so I started looking into him, and then that's when this guy named Peter Thiel came on my radar. Started digging into Peter Thiel, realized like there is way too much shit that's connected to him, and so that's when I started doing all the webs and stuff. And then from there, just started picking up steam. Got noticed by like David Icke, and they actually like had me come do like a 10-episode series of what all my research over the last 100 years that have kind of influenced not only America but mostly the West. And then did that series. That went well. Got huge love for the Ike family, and now here we are. About a year later, and I've kind of just been doing my own thing and posting stuff that I find, and autistically, just drawing all these things out for people. So.
Yeah, dude, it's incredible work you're doing. And that is when now that you mentioned the David Icke thing, I think that is when I saw you, when you came on my radar, at least.
Yeah.
How was that, dude? How was it working with those dudes?
It was good. So essentially, I actually like got in contact with them because a lady on their network, her name's Kristen Bittering. Her and I kind of bonded over trashing Ian Carroll, who I am very publicly not a fan of.
I've seen.
Yeah. And she was like, "Hey, you're calling out the same stuff I am. You want to come do the show?" I said yes. And then Rich Willett from Iconic got me on his show after. And then Jamie, David's son, reached out and was like, "Hey, do you want to come, do a couple or like do a series with us?" And I said yes. I have two conditions. One, is there anything I'm not allowed to talk about? And two, is there anybody, in these circles and things that you guys would like consider off limits? Because those would be like red flags to me, obviously.
Sure.
And Jamie responded with like, as long as it's the truth and you have the evidence to back it up, you can say whatever you want. They never censored me or like, took down an episode that I had or anything like that. So I had a really good experience with them personally. And I know some people question them, and we don't completely agree on everything, but as far as my experience, I think they are good intentioned people, and they do excellent research. I've learned a lot from them.
That's cool. Well, like our last guest we had on, John Cullen, he said if we all agreed on everything, it'd be kind of gay.
Yeah.
So I love that one. So no, yeah, that's awesome, man, to be able to work with those guys. And then so this whole web thing, did you just bring this up in your own head? Is this how I'm gonna like show it to people, or did you see this kind of research from somebody else and decide like this is the way I want to attack it?
Yeah, so I'm sure everyone kind of experiences this, like as you're doing research and stuff. You're like reading through different articles and documents and stuff, and it's really hard to kind of like keep track of it all sometimes.
Yeah.
So I kind of did that for myself personally, so I could say, okay, this person donated to this company that this person's also on the board of, and they're also part of a VC capital. So it was really like for my own like record keeping essentially. And then as I started to post pictures of them to kind of visualize that really resonated with people. And I think that visual aspect is missing a lot of the times from like articles and stuff, because it maybe leaves out like important previous context, or there could be an adjacent connection that maybe makes the entire picture make more sense, that seems to be left out sometimes, whether that's intentionally or not. But I think it's the best way to sort of show people the big picture instead of trying to explain it to them, because we're visual learners. We're all TikTok brained at this point. So
Yeah, we got like 3 seconds, I think, right? Is that what?
Yeah.
Watching you build it with the live chat was really cool. That Nick Fuentes
thanks.
one, man. Like that was really cool to see.
Yeah, Sean and John are both telling me how impressed they were with that.
I appreciate that. Honestly, that was one of my like weaker showings, only because like I typically track like financial records, board seats, and things like that. So really, all I had to go on was like his juxtaposition to things. There's some, man, and we'll get into them. Hopefully, I don't know how much time we have.
To get your audience involved like that's really cool, man. I don't think anyone else is really doing that.
Yeah, I mean, from my experience is like last year I had 2,000 followers. Nobody was paying attention to the shit I was saying, and I would post stuff that I thought was like incredibly important, and then it would just be glossed over, never seen by anybody. And so this is sort of that opportunity to use the platform that I've kind of been lucky enough to grow, to allow those voices to come in and say like, hey, did you know about this connection? Did you know about that? Because it's impossible for any one of us to figure all this stuff out and know everything. So really, it just kind of puts the power back to my community to say like, hey, if there's anything you guys think is worth letting people know about, send it to me. We'll do it right here, real time, authentic. I don't need to like consult with anybody or like ask if I can cover something, because I'm just a guy in his room doing his own thing. So
No, dude, that's how you come across, and that's how I perceive you as. So that's awesome.
real one.
Yeah, a real one.
Well,
Exactly. That's what we're looking for.
I mean, in today's internet culture, there's been documentaries done on successful and thorough and deep research. And, just from the full video I watched your phone test search, and you said it's your week showing. I'm interested to watch other stuff, and I certainly will be, because you did a lot of that classic stuff that you've seen shown in documentaries where random everyday folk who just had an obsession with something, not saying you're obsessed, but they're unraveling mysteries and solving things that police can't touch for years and years. And that's cool. You're a researcher's researcher, and that's there's not a lot like that out there. So props to you, and I'm excited to get into what you want to talk about tonight, man.
yeah, absolutely. And thanks for that, man. Table's open. Whatever you guys have. If you want me to lead, we can start with Flynn.
Lead.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I just even though we were focused on you for a second there, I know Dave's eyes just lit up. So let's do it.
Well,
All
it's just
right.
like, because it's so weird to me, because like I was rooting for that guy like when everything happened. I think so many people were, and then you learn about how he got fired. It just the whole theater of it all, and then you realize it's theater. And then you realize he was in charge of psychological operations in the army.
Yes.
And it gets real fucking creepy from there.
Absolutely. Stanley McChrystal.
Stanley. So yeah, man. To tell us what I guess what was the big red flags that drew you to your Flynn research? How did it start?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that it really kind of got started. I have to give credit to there's a lady named the Amazing Polly on Twitter, and she kind of like put the wellness company on my radar, and she started talking about like all these people are involved with Flynn, and I was like, how the hell is like a random NSA admin connected to this like alt pharma company? And just sort of started looking through everything, and then the financial records, and then that made me focus more on Flynn and like his America's Future crew and his like promotion of like the QAnon stuff. And from there it was like, okay, I'm gonna go through his entire career, and I'm gonna see all the people that he's like started organizations with, or received money from, or worked with, or worked under, and from there it just kind of started to branch out. And I can start pulling it up now, because it led me down some like dark stuff.
Yeah, dude, I've talked to some people. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
Oh, you're good.
they're involved in some dark shit. That's for
yeah.
sure.
Oh yeah, like wet works operations, like they actively just kill people. I have seen like tons of evidence to indicate that all those like child protection rings that they do and stuff is actually an inverse, and they're the ones facilitating it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's some really, really dark stuff, man. Like the targeted individual thing.
Yeah, that's real. That is
yeah.
I've talked to many individuals who have been targeted by that group of people, and they're vicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can. I'll go ahead and share my screen here. Let's see. There we go. And so, like obviously start with Michael Flynn. He was part of the DIA, the NSA. His brother Charles Flynn, America's Future, obviously, which also hosts Josh Hammer. They have Ivan Rakelin. Roger Stone is like loosely involved. He's not officially on there. Kirk Cameron is on America's
What?
Future. Yeah. His sister Jack Posobiec. You have Laura Logan, Mike Smith, which is the guy that does videos for Liz Crokin. So she's
Blah.
part of that as well. Yeah. And as you guys know, probably is that like Liz Crokin co-opted Pizzagate to turn it into like a sort of a limited disclosure thing, because there absolutely are like pedophiles within the government and within high-ranking institutions and things like that, but it was more so just skewed towards Democrats, specifically, when it's both sides, and it's just as bad on both sides.
I think after you'd have to have the blinders on still to not realize that, like at today's day and age with not getting the disclosure with the Epstein stuff. It's both sides, guys. You just got to accept it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when I start picking these people apart, like Laura Logan, for example, Laura Logan's husband is a guy named Joe Burkett, and Joe Burkett used to work for the Lincoln Group, which was a like private military group that was actually partnering with the U.S. military Joint Psychological Operations Support. And so like all of the like anti-Islamic rhetoric that was kind of coming out at that point, the story behind Laura Logan supposedly being like sexually assaulted by Islamists is kind of up in the air to me, because in my opinion, her association directly with Joe Burkett as a PSYOP guy on behalf of the military, pushing the anti-Islamic narrative, especially in like the wake of post 9/11. And Joe Burkett is part of he was part of the whole Seth Rich wiretapping scandal as well. So Ed Butowski, Laura Logan, Trevor Fitzgibbon, Thomas Schoenberger, Manuel Chavez, Matt Couch, and Malia Zimmerman were all involved. I think the main culprits here would be Ed Butowski, Fitzgibbon, Schoenberger, and Chavez. Because they all ran this thing called Shadowbox, which was essentially they marketed themselves as like your online private army. So like if there were people that needed harassed, or you needed to flood somebody with bots or whatever that looks like, that company was sort of used for that. And Michael Flynn has actually worked with them in the past on various things.
And that's a legitimate company?
It was. It's no longer incorporated. I believe there was a falling out between Manuel Chavez, Thomas Schoenberger, and Trevor Fitzgibbon. Manuel Chavez ended up just kind of becoming like an irrelevant Rumble streamer. Thomas Schoenberger is still actively like targeting and harassing people on the internet. Trevor Fitzgibbon, though, he made out like a bandit, because he kind of came from like the Democrats and had like a sexual assault allegations against him, so he got shunned and decided to rebrand himself as sort of like this health freedom, like independent, question everything kind of guy. But he's historically been like a PR person and was trained by David Fenton, who is a Council on Foreign Relations PR guy. And essentially, David Fenton is one of the main people who is responsible for helping to establish this model where the state sort of works with PR companies to produce like fake news stories, or they'll drum something up out of proportion. One example would be like the lady on the train that was stabbed in the neck. There are like incidents like that occur all the time, but the ones that do get elevated to that mainstream national zeitgeist, they're intentional. So they will pay media companies, or they will use their connections and stuff to sort of propagate these things. Like they'll sort of like make you afraid of something, or they'll say, something pro-immigrant or anti-immigrant. And it's basically just sort of putting stories out there to get people to believe a specific narrative. And I mean, that's what PR is at the end of the day. But this is on behalf of the state and the actors within the state. And Trevor Fitzgibbon ended up establishing this thing called Silent Partner, which was the like the organization that handled RFK's super PAC, for example. And as I'm sure you guys know, like RFK ended up, he was a Trojan horse the entire time, but he would speak very early about vaccines and act like he's on our side and our hero and he's fighting for us. And then the second he's in office, all that goes away. And Trevor Fitzgibbon was a part of that, and also helped set up like a bunch of the events, like the March for the Mandate stuff. That was Trevor Fitzgibbon. You had like Rage Against the War Machine was him, and that's also where they pay influencers to come attend the rallies, and then that's how they sort of get them involved in everything and stuff. And that's just looking at like Laura Logan and this one aspect right here. But it goes into so much other things.
Well, the whole digital soldier, moniker that Flynn created too is such a psychological thing. Like, because like he figured it out where like all he had to do, I think, is like go pay somebody to go like 1,000 posts, and then all of a sudden General Flynn pops up in your box, and your allegiance to him is like blind now.
Yeah.
Because people get that gratification, like, oh my God, General Flynn liked my post. I'm a digital soldier now. Like it's so weird.
Absolutely, yeah. And they've co-opted so many people. As far as like the wellness company is obviously like a huge reservoir for their influencers. But
so what is the wellness company, if you don't mind diving into that?
Yeah. So the wellness company was.
Connect.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry.
The wellness company, it was sort of birthed out of COVID as like this alternative where, obviously like the medical industry was lying about COVID the entire time. But they were sort of tasked with like selling supplements like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin and things like that to people who didn't trust the government or big pharma, but are willing to trust like random people online to sell you drugs to put in your body, which has always been, kind of confusing to me. They had the backing of like Robert Malone was there very early on. I think he, ended up parting ways after him and McCullough got into it.
I watched all that stuff. I watched those guys so much, man.
Yeah, and Peter McCullough, obviously, like he's their chief scientific officer. He is not a good person. He is basically courting people in a similar way to Mike Flynn, maybe a little less nefarious because he's not like actually, ordering, hit squads or anything, but still, pushing bunk science on people and stuff. I actually have a really unpopular belief that the COVID virus does not exist and that it is a cover-up for electromagnetic frequency poisoning. What's happening?
All right, time to elaborate. Time to elaborate.
Time to shift gears, ladies
Let's
and
get into
gentlemen.
this. And also, if you have anything for your screen share that would help with this, the floor is yours, man. We're all ears.
Oh, so this one is sort of one of my less scientific approaches, but it is sort of one of those things where, like, if we look in the last 100 years at like the increase in, what they consider like respiratory diseases and different viruses and things like that, that it coincides a lot with like where there are outbreaks where they had launched some sort of like radio frequency system. Things like Havana syndrome, and then with COVID specifically, there is 5G symptoms that have actually been shown to be the exact same overlapping symptoms as what the COVID virus was. And as you guys know, like as we were locked down and stuff, they were building 5G. And, I think that all of it is, hey, keep believing in this virus thing so that we can keep building cell towers and spy satellites and AI data centers and stuff, and you'll keep blaming the wrong thing. And they need you to do that because they're building $100 trillion surveillance system, and they need that EMF. They need the radio waves. They need the towers and stuff. And I think it's a
Remember they were paying people to like call and like report, and it was like a big tracking system. Like they were just hiring civilians just to like track where the COVID outbreaks are happening.
Oh
and-
my God.
Yeah.
All right. Well, full disclosure.
You got paid.
My wife actually did that. My wife was that was my wife's job for a good almost 2 years. The surveillance wasn't as deep as the media will tell you. It was. It seemed like more so just a. I don't know what was done with these databases. Obviously, that's for pure speculation purposes. And if anybody wants to talk about that after I say this, but like her thing was, she would ask the people who they've been directly in contact with, and she would just let those people know that, hey, you may potentially have been exposed. I mean, it seemed really wholesome on the surface, but
Sure.
in my head, I feel like they probably built a pretty massive database of information that who knows what the hell they did with it, whose hands it got it, who it
DNA,
was
dude.
sold to.
How about when they were sticking sticks up our nose?
Mm-hmm.
That happened to me once. It was horrible and bullshit.
I'm embarrassed to say I did it one time myself.
Yeah, I did too, man. I had to travel. I had no choice.
And so with the contact tracing stuff that was going on, there was actually a company called Kronos Inc. That was sort of responsible for receiving all of that. So if you ended up coming into contact with COVID, that would be submitted to a database. That database would then use like an API, which is essentially like a telephone to talk to another database, and see everyone that you've come into contact with via Bluetooth. So they would use your Bluetooth proximity from your smartphone, and if you had COVID, then they were using that as a justification to say, okay, well then we need to log everyone that you've been in close proximity with via Bluetooth. And we also need to put them in this database and stuff. And it was really just
That's
a
nuts.
giant, it was a giant social tracking.
I can confirm for sure that they didn't use that Kronos method in New York State, which you would think would be the first state to do something like that. Just from seeing what I saw, I can confirm they didn't do that here, unless there were other people that were involved that were doing that aspect of it that just weren't involved with the operations that I know of.
Oh,
but
yeah. Kronos was
nevertheless, it's still a little too far, even without Kronos. When you look back on it, and we all say this all the time, and I'll just reiterate it again for everybody who's watching. Never forget what they did to us. Are you freaking kidding me? Never forget what they did to us. What a terrible time, and what a terrible time it's led to. And that's why I'm glad people like you are here to tell us all these interesting theories. Now back to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's crazy too because like the contact tracing stuff was largely like a joint operation between like Hellman and Friedman and CIG. Hellman and Friedman, I'll actually bring them up because they are connected to a couple things themselves. I think my OBS froze. Too many connections. There we go. Oh nope, it's freezing again. Sorry about that.
You're not showing Frozen.
I'll zoom out and show you guys how big this is.
Oh shit!
God.
Like it gets pretty deep.
What?
Yeah. And all of this was done
boy.
in like the first 3 episodes on like my YouTube and Rumble and stuff is me actually researching all of this live, like with my audience. We're verifying and vetting everything, so none of these are like, I made it
See
up.
Hulk Hogan up there.
Yeah, so funny story. Yeah, I think what's going to happen is you guys are going to get me on like random tangents and I'll just expose a little bit of everything.
Was the Hulkster murdered?
No, he actually, I think he died from natural causes. But so do you guys remember when like the Hulk Hogan sex tape released?
Yes.
So that was done by Gawker. Well, right before, Gawker had posted about Peter Thiel being gay and using this blood company, Ambrosia.
Oh, Ambrosia. Yeah, I reported on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so Peter Thiel bankrolls Hulk Hogan's lawyer, Charles Harder, and essentially helps Hulk Hogan sue Gawker into non-existence as like a retaliation. And then what do you know? 2024, we have Hulk Hogan rolling up with all the rest of the Peter Thiel acolytes to push Donald Trump on the national election stage.
Right? Yeah, dude. He got, and I work with like a buddy who's in my civilian job. He's a wrestling fan. Doesn't have any interest in politics whatsoever. But as soon as Hulk Hogan came on the scene, he every morning he's like, oh, talking about Trump, Trump this, Trump that. I'm like, holy fuck! I'm like, this shit works.
It works. Yeah. Absolutely, man. And it's crazy too, because like I grew up watching wrestling. You would think that the people that watch wrestling
hell yeah. Why is it that everybody that's involved in this kind of thing has some kind of a base in wrestling somewhere? And not to go on a tangent, but has anybody noticed that? You can name tons of creators, and they all have watched, do watch, or will consider someday returning to professional wrestling.
I mean, we had Donald Trump in the WWE. Yeah. We have Linda McMahon, running our school system.
Hey, the president of the United States is a WWE Hall of Famer. You better get it right.
The political landscape is the WWE.
Seven Seas. I don't know if you're aware, but Sean and John actually run what would you guys call it? I'll let you guys describe it.
We do video production. We do a lot of professional wrestling. We do a bunch of cage fights and Muay Thai and stuff like that. So we're like,
and this stuff.
Yeah, and this stuff. We're deep in the pro wrestling world, and that could create situations for us, but we don't care.
Absolutely.
Period. And it took me the longest to get to this point, and I'm sure if John wants to mention quickly, it took me a long time.
It did, but that's
I'm
fine.
here.
And I understand, but let's go now. Yeah, let's go.
That's the thing too, is like I call out the QAnon grift a lot, and people will look back in retrospect and like feel bad that they fell for it, and you shouldn't, because it was created by like this massive AI driven, people like psychologists were involved, military intelligence. All the money you could imagine. And so, of course it's going to be effective. The fact that you stop believing it means you won and you beat them. And I think that's important to always like keep in mind.
Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, man. Like we gotta give those people a rope to grab,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things where, I've seen people that have admitted like, hey, I fell for it, I don't now. And I like actually try to go out of my way to compliment those people, because, it is hard to admit when you're wrong. And I think it's a huge show of character to be able to go back and say like, look, I was wrong. This is what it is now. I'm correcting the record, and I'm not, with any of that anymore. That's like a huge issue I have with a lot of creators, is that it seems like they'll just wait, and after enough time passes from them being wrong, that they'll just pretend they were right the entire time.
Yeah. I guess, my account, Isaac Cappy, when I first found Cappy, I really had no idea about Q. I just saw these videos of this guy going crazy, calling out all these Hollywood pedophiles, and I'm like, holy shit, this guy's fucking awesome. And I didn't discover who he was really until like the end. It might have been like the last months or so before he had passed, or before got suicided or whatever it had happened. And so that's what woke me up to it. It wasn't the whole QAnon aspect of it. So I never really talked about QAnon on my page at all. But yeah, he woke a lot of people up. So it did do things that were good. It did wake people up in an aspect, but you had to break free at some point, like you said.
Yeah. A lot of people didn't realize how deep the disgusting, horrible satanic ritual shit in Hollywood goes until this QAnon thing started. I think a lot of it was those Fall Cabal videos. I can't remember the lady's name at the time, but they came out like right around the start of COVID.
She was murdered.
Yeah, she certainly was. And that's kind of like a lot of what my wife and I kind of really went. I woke up more so in like 2016, and I'll give him credit. Tim Pool is the guy that did it for me, but obviously I'm much deeper than that.
We all outgrow, I started with Alex Jones. Obviously,
He's got something brewing.
Yeah,
Tim Pool.
Yeah, we'll just go right. All right. No, listen, ruin it for me right now. Come on.
Oh,
you got the floor.
Yeah, Tim Pool was getting paid by that tenant media stuff. He has a bunch of sponsors. He's not sponsored by the wellness company, but he has stuff that is connected to people through like shell corporations and stuff. But he was getting paid by a tenant media, which was Russia. Like what was it, $100,000 a month, and he had no idea. He claims to have had no idea, and then now he's meeting with Bibi Netanyahu under Chatham House rules. And
So here's a question about that particular the tenant media thing you just brought up. Actually, I just last night or yesterday I saw a clip with him talking about how he was named by the FBI in this case, and then they just they notified him and just decided kind of. He said sort of out of the blue. He contacted them. 6 months went by, and he said, this is no longer an investigation. It's considered a closed matter. Do you got any research on that, or anything to kind of clear that up for me a little bit?
At this point in time, no, but it is something that I can absolutely dig into. I think that essentially what probably happened was they got the narrative across they needed to get across, and so they didn't really see a point in going back and cleaning it up because all of society had moved on to the next thing. But you had people like Lauren Chin. I think I actually have a little bit of something, but let me double check. So yeah, you had Lauren Southern, Benny Johnson, Matt Christensen, Taylor Hansen, and all of that was going through Lauren Chin and her husband Liam Donovan. Lauren Chin obviously like being connected with Turning Point USA previously, and Charlie Kirk, and that she also comes from Blaze Media. Blaze Media is like Glenn Beck's thing, which is all just funded by the DeVoe family. You guys might recognize Betsy DeVoe as our former Secretary of Education under Trump. But Dick DeVoe is Amway Corporation, Nutrilite. There was this whole thing with Alpha Bank and Donald Trump. Basically skews Russian in interests. And Betsy DeVoe is actually Eric Prince's sister. Eric Prince being the guy over like Blackwater, and he's partnered with China on like the Belt and Road Initiative, basically trying to help build up Africa to be ready for like the technological agenda. But as far as like Tim Pool himself, I haven't ever like let me go break down all of his companies and everyone he's connected to and stuff like that. Just some loose connections, but mostly it's the stuff he says that makes me. I'm just like,
he's always been like very milquetoast, and he says it himself. It always seems like he's the type that doesn't take a stand until he's sure it's not gonna kind of wreck what he's got going on. And I think that's something you mentioned about being a problem about today's talent.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't think of a better example than him. I mean, I still watch him to this day, and I'm probably not gonna stop. But like, that's a prime example of what you were getting into a bit ago for sure.
Yeah, I will say Shane Cashman. I've actually spoke with him.
Inverted World.
Yeah.
I like what Shane's doing. I check him out all the time.
Yeah. Me and him have actually had like a one-to-one conversation, like in person. And he understands the Peter Thiel aspect, the technocratic agenda aspect. Like he gets it, and I really enjoyed seeing him like call out that Rainmaker CEO. And being like, hey, why are you trying to kill us all? And I think people should be that abrasive towards these people, because we are actively, like, whether people want to believe that it is warfare or not, like, we are actively getting attacked psychologically, mentally, through our food, through money, all of these things, like, every single day. And, I think that the whole, like, posturing and being polite, and we don't have time for that anymore. Like we need to call these people out and not worry about the consequences, because it is happening. And I think the fear of consequences, or not getting, access journalism, or being cut off from like a certain group, like none of that should matter. Because we are literally like barreling down towards like a digital dystopia. And in my opinion, like a lot of these people are just kind of distracting everybody and allowing it to happen, whether they know or not. But I think it's one of those things where the due diligence should be on the people that claim to be researchers and, you know, politically active and stuff, and stop buying into this whole two-party politic thing, or it's the Democrats, it's the Republicans. Like it's there's so much more going on behind the scenes, and you know, the fact that they're still trying to court people to elections and this, that, and the other. It's I just always see it as disingenuous.
You think elections are bullshit?
I absolutely do. I might actually have something on that. Let me check. So as far as the like the 2016 elections and stuff, right? We had obviously the whole thing with like Smartmatic and Dominion was going on, where essentially they were accused of like rigging the election in favor of Joe Biden. Which I do think happened, but I don't think it was like a Democrat. I think it was to create this comeback narrative for Donald Trump. But we look at like Jared Thomas, for example, who ended up awarding, you know, a voting machine contract to Dominion in Georgia, which is where one of the places where the election was sort of contended, and that's where you get Brian Kemp. Brian Kemp was basically like paying his aides and stuff to vet these contracts with Dominion specifically. And this is after an official report had come out that Dominion, Smartmatic, Sequoia, and Venezuela were collaborating with each other in 2012 to rig the election then. And this is actually from I believe it was an FBI document that basically shows that they absolutely were doing that, and then the government just willingly allowed them to contract again for the 2016 elections. Who was the guy, or the firm that was representing Smartmatic and Dominion was DLA Piper. DLA Piper had where is he? Peter Comey, who was working there. And Peter Comey's brother is James Comey. James Comey was over the Clinton email case. You know, he gave the statement and everything like that. But it even goes in here to say that this is from the Congressional Record when they were interviewing Comey. And they say, it is just rather interesting. Who had any idea the Comey family had such ties to the Clinton Foundation? Peter Comey redesigned the FBI building. So this guy that works at DLA Piper is in charge of redesigning the FBI building. FBI Director James Comey grew up in the New Jersey suburbs with his brother Peter. And Procon Consulting's client list includes FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C. So that's just kind of to set up, you know, the involvement of Comey specifically in the Clinton investigation. Because you have, where is it? The person that was over DLA Piper at the time was Doug Imhoff, who is Kamala Harris's husband. And that was like, that was as she was running for vice president. And it wasn't until she took office that he stepped down.
Wow. Every single thing is connected somehow.
It really is. It really is. It's crazy. There were records that DLA Piper was also donating to the Clinton Foundation. So just another connection point there. But then you also have Kamala Harris, who was the district attorney, or I think the attorney general in California, around the time that the One West Bank fraud was happening. And so essentially you had this Ponzi scheme that was fronting itself as a bank that was being run by George Soros, and the person in charge of it was Steve Mnuchin. Steve Mnuchin would then go on to become Donald Trump's Treasury Secretary and be responsible for passing the CARES Act during COVID, which was the largest printing of money that we've ever seen in the United States, and what caused inflation and everything like that. And Steve Mnuchin was the head of One West Bank when Kamala chose not to prosecute them. And then he ends up becoming our Treasury Secretary. And then you have the ties to, obviously, the Clinton Foundation with Huma Abedin, who's married to Alex Soros, who's the son of George Soros. He runs Open Society Foundation with this guy named Mark Brown, who's part of the Center for Global Development, the UN Development Program. He was part of the World Bank. And Mark Brown
Madness.
was the he was the chairman of the board of directors of the election technology manufacturer Smartmatics Holding Company, and served as the president of George Soros's Open Society Foundations up until June 2024. And then you have Stacey Abrams, who's also on the Bilderberg Steering Committee with Alex Karp, Eric Schmidt, Peter Thiel, so on and so forth. So that's why she was a prominent figure for the Georgia election results. And so all of this just kind of like stems out to like, oh, okay, so basically they set it up to where Donald Trump won the first election because that was rigged, lost the second election because that was rigged, and then won the third election because that was also rigged. And it's created this entire narrative of, you know, oh, the terrible Democrat government has cheated our president. We need to come out in even more support. We need to believe them even more blindly. And here we are. And they're still contesting the 2020 election.
Do you think like Trump is aware of that?
Yes,
fully?
absolutely. Yeah, I think Trump has been part of the agenda for a long, long time. Back in the 90s, he got bailed out by the Rothschilds. His mentor was actually Roy Cohn, who was blackmailing people with sexual blackmail through Dealey Plaza. And Donald Trump kind of learned all of that and then goes on to be friends with Epstein. And, you know, I think that he's been part of it from the very beginning. I mean, his dad was actually working with like Chabad Lubavitch, who are the main supporters of like the technocratic agenda, the transhumanism stuff, the Kabbalah. You know, that is like their religious text. They are connected with like the UJF Federation. They were the ones that were crawling out of the tunnels in New York. They run the Likud party, which is Netanyahu's party. Epstein was Chabad.
That is Netanyahu's party is okay.
Likud, yeah. And Likud is basically Mossad and Chabad masquerading as this political party that ended up ousting the former prime minister. Yeah.
Hell.
All right.
All right.
And
yeah.
That's the elections anyway. Like I think especially the hanging Chad thing back in the 2000 election was a huge psyop just to get us on electronics.
How about local elections? Do you think there's anything in there? I mean,
I used to think so. I used to think that was the case, but now it seems like the PACs and the money influence and stuff more often than not.
they drip down so far to these little elections you wouldn't even think mattered to people up top. It's
Absolutely.
weird.
Yeah, like I don't think every single mayor in every single city is completely beholden, but it is one of those things where, you know, if they're paying someone, that person is then going to kick it down the road, and, you know, it becomes this pyramid scheme, essentially.
It definitely trickles down to the local level, because that's where, you know, these future stars that they plan to take all the way to the top get their start. You know, they trot them out in a city council election to just, you know, let them get the hang of being in front of a camera, let them get used to the things that they will expect. And they start steering right from there. And then that agenda sips in, or, you know, drips into local politics. And then you have a situation like where I live, Niagara Falls, New York, where we've got 50 years of nothing getting done because of this type of stuff, this type of dirty money, these type of politics. That's
our mayors actually end up going to jail. Like they actually end up doing the slammer. I think 3 in a row.
It's crazy.
My mayor a few years back was actually involved in like embezzling public funds in order to fund like vacations for her and the head of her security, who were having an affair with each other and cheating on both of their spouses. And now she's running for governor of my state, so that's great.
Oh, it's par for the course, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, so you know, it seems like they crawl back into the shadows, they retreat for a couple years, wait for everyone to forget, and then rebrand themselves.
Well, that's what Cuomo's doing right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Absolutely.
Slaughtered all those old people during COVID, and then now they're trying to make him. I mean, and that's a whole nother topic, but What do you make of that? Real quick, what do you make of that New York City mess that's going on with the mayor stuff? You got Trump trying to support Cuomo, and they're so afraid of this Mondavi guy or whatever the hell his name is. Do you think he was just he'll get in there and just expose everything that the
No.
all?
No, Mom Donnie is actually actively getting donations from Palantir.
Oh, God.
Not directly, but
Lord.
someone.
I mean,
is
not that I supported this guy. I want to make that as crystal clear.
Yeah.
I wanted to see the chaos because fuck Cuomo. You know, they deserve this shit. This is what they wanted.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
wait, Dave. So Dave, you're not a commie?
No, I'm not a communist. Let's
All
make
right.
this clear.
So will you state that on the air right now in front of the whole world, Dave? Are you a commie or not?
I'm not a communist. I'm not taking money from the wellness company. It's not happening.
Good.
McCullough, go find
No?
somebody else.
Be well.
Breaking news!
And be well.
Breaking news here! Breaking news on We Want Answers. The return of Cappy will not be funded by the wellness company. Clip that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, that's right. Clip that.
I love that, man. Good on you guys, because they do pay pretty well. From what I've
Fuck,
heard.
they do?
From what I've heard, yeah.
All right,
buddy.
guys, you got to buy us a coffee. We just made a mistake.
Cut that shit.
It's actually funny because you guys know Sam Hyde, right?
Yeah, that's how we had that little talk before we went live.
Yeah.
That's what drew me to it. I saw the Sam Hyde, and I was like, wait a second, what the fuck? And yeah, that's when I made the connections that quite possibly they're in our DMs monitoring us. I mean, obviously they are, but to what extent? It looks like pretty deep.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like every social media, honestly, like I also have a web on like the creation of Silicon Valley and how it's been sort of compromised from the start. As far as like being a giant DoD operation, in collaboration with like Israeli intelligence, obviously has played a huge role in that. But it actually comes back to like Donald Trump's uncle. It's crazy. So I'll bring up this web here. For you guys, have you ever heard of a venture capital company called Kleiner Perkins?
No.
No.
So Kleiner Perkins it sort of operates similar to BlackRock, not necessarily in like they own assets, but they seed fund companies to the tunes of millions of dollars. They tend to focus more on like right-leaning things from my experience, and then you have their mirror, which is like Sequoia Capital, which is an entirely other rabbit hole in and of itself. But so Kleiner Perkins, it was started by two guys. One of them was Thomas Perkins. Thomas Perkins was actually mentored by this guy named Georges Doriot. Georges Doriot was part of the very first venture capital fund ever created. And that was called the American Research and Development Corporation. And it was created by the military through Georges Doriot, Carl Taylor Compton, and Vannevar Bush. And then there was also Ralph Flanders. And so Ralph Flanders was part of the Committee for Economic Development, which works with the IMF and the World Bank, the Business Advisory Council, the National Recovery Administration under FDR during the Great Depression, and the Flood Control Commission. And then Georges Doriot was MIT and the U.S. Army's Military Planning Division. Carl Taylor Compton was in bed with the Ford Foundation, the Sloan Foundation, which is like the Rockefeller Foundation, but out of MIT, and then the Rockefeller Foundation itself, and was also part of the Office of Scientific Research and Development that was the precursor to what would become the Manhattan Project. And
All the waste from that is buried right here in Niagara Falls.
Yeah. Yeah, and Oak Ridge.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. Yeah, right where we grew up was kids. It was like a contaminated area from the fucking Manhattan Project. You can't make that up.
Absolutely. And Vannevar Bush, so you guys should absolutely look into this guy because he was the one that essentially convinced the government that we need to stop putting so much money into weapons and start funding science and using science as a weapon in warfare. And he was part of Raytheon and General Electric. He helped set up the Ames Research Center, which ended up hosting the NACA, which was NASA. They ended up becoming NASA. So that's where you sort of get like the big money infrastructure and the investments in science and stuff. I honestly, personally believe NASA was a way for them to sort of test like ICBM missiles back in the day. And now we have missiles that can reach anywhere on Earth. I don't think that was a coincidence. And there's more to it, obviously, with like the fake moon landing and stuff. But so all of these guys were involved with setting up the very first venture capital fund that ended up funding their very first company that this VC ever successfully funded was called the HVEC, which was the High Voltage Electric Company, started by Donald Trump's uncle. And Donald Trump's uncle was actually mentored by this Carl Taylor Compton guy. And all of this happened right after Tesla died. So you have MIT and you have the military getting together to take DoD funds and then invest them into this electric company that Donald Trump's uncle started right after he got the research from Tesla when Tesla died.
Yeah, that's crazy. That whole Tesla Trump connection. And
What about all that shit online about Barron and the time traveling book? What's that shit? Is that real?
So it sort of works where like they set the prophecies and then the people
yes,
will
fulfill
then
them.
fulfill them
That-
like, actively. Yeah.
So is that so? Do you believe that we're already under the New World Order umbrella, like, and we're not fighting it? We're already in it. Like, are you under
Yes.
that perception? Okay.
Yeah, I get called black pilled a lot.
Oh, me too lately. Yeah, like
Yeah.
the last. Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, you know, like this technocracy stuff, for example, like this stuff isn't new. They were pushing technocracy 100 years ago. And you had people like Elon Musk's grandfather was actually part of the original technocracy movement. His name's Joshua Haldeman. And he actually got arrested in Canada for like trying to hand out flyers and get people to, you know, basically abandon the Canadian government and go with this technocratic system where they said that the engineers would be in charge. So all the people that are good with technology and stuff would end up cooing the government and installing their systems and their software in a way that nobody could ever replace them because they don't know how it works. And that's essentially what we have now with Doge. And, you know, Joshua Haldeman was found in violation of the Defense of Canada Act, was fined $8,000, and I think from his shame moved to South Africa, had Elon's mom. She ended up doing like a bunch of PR work and stuff as well. And I think that she sort of brainwashed Elon into fulfilling her father's legacy. And that's why he ended up coming back, partnering with people like DARPA, partnering with Peter Thiel, and now he's like one of the largest defense contractors, and he is a huge part of this technocracy thing, especially like trying to turn X into a version of WeChat. You know, the fact that he's like telling people we're going to go colonize Mars, which is bullshit. His brain chips, his self-driving cars, electric vehicles. He believes in climate change, like all of these things. And it's like if they had all of this sort of like loose idea 100 years ago, and then now it's happening, and throughout that 100 years, like that was never a mainstream story or anything like that. And we're fed these like mainstream narratives. People are still talking about Charlie Kirk. In my personal opinion, like Charlie Kirk's death didn't matter the day it happened because he's one guy. They kill people all the time. And it's to keep people focused on that one singular issue instead of like realizing there's a biodigital convergence happening, that there's sensors getting, you know, infiltrated in the medical industry, and that there's doctors and stuff that are talking about transhumanism as sort of like a benefit.
Wasn't there a whole bunch of like nefarious bills passed on the day Kirk got shot?
I believe there were 30 bills or so that were passed, just sort of shoehorned through Congress. And that was right after they were coming back from their break, I believe, from not having to do the Epstein thing, where they had went on a recess and then came back, and then Charlie Kirk dies, and they're like, oh, let's get, 30 bills pushed through right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting how that works.
Yeah.
Man, what next? What else have you been? What's been near and dear to your heart? I guess is your latest research.
Oh man, so I have this thing called the Fair Shake Pack that I've been looking into. It is officially like the largest lobbying group that is pro crypto, and it's essentially like a conglomerate of all the big stable coins. So I have broken down all those stable coins like Solana Labs, which is responsible for the Solana chain. That's where
Sure.
Donald Trump launched his meme coin, stuff like that. That is Anatoly Yakovenko, who comes from Qualcomm, which is a DoD and pro Mossad technology company that produces the chips that are in American smartphones. Do you remember that clip where Netanyahu said, like, held up a smartphone and said, "If you have one of these, you have a piece of Israel in every single
Yeah.
one"? That's
Yeah.
because Israel is in charge of like the Qualcomms, the Snapdragons.
Doesn't that just make you feel warm inside?
All warm and fuzzy, man? It's it reminds me of like the Lebanon, like the pager operation, where now how do you get thousands and thousands of people to all take this compromised, essentially a bomb, and buy
Yeah.
it and
Strap
use
it
it?
themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Qualcomm chips?
possibly.
Could it be?
Possibly.
I don't know. Maybe.
I think the Qualcomm chip is more that they have built-in backdoors, even on the hardware level.
What kind of dystopia is this?
It's
Forming.
fun. Yeah.
This whole crypto thing
Forming.
is just like,
It's forming.
I know.
We're in
I
it.
know it's formed,
we're,
but like,
we're in the heat of this shit right now.
I don't want anything to do with the crypto stuff.
So
man.
crypto, I made some money off it, but I treated it like a casino. I kind of, at first I was buying into it, like, oh man, this could change the whole world, all that, and I don't know. We'll have to get your take on it. The whole decentralized, is it even really decentralized when somebody buys so much of it? I mean, at that point, it's not really, in my mind, decentralized anymore. But yeah, I treated it like a casino. I made some money on it. Nothing crazy. Just it helped me out for a couple of years. But I treated it like I was going to Vegas.
Yeah. I was the same way. Like, I remember back when Bitcoin was first starting to get used on like the Silk Road. And,
Yeah, I remember that too. Back when it was like $30 a freaking coin.
Yeah,
And
dude,
hearing about it.
yeah, I heard about Bitcoin when it was $7.38 or something crazy like that. And someone was like, "Hey,
Fuck us, dude.
Yeah. Someone was like, "Hey, you could use this to buy drugs on the internet?" And I was like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, yeah.
And so I started doing that, and then obviously the Silk Road got taken down. And then when Binance launched, I had a Binance account when the shit coins hit in COVID with Pancake Swap in 2020. I was part of that too.
Same.
Yeah. And it was one of those things where like I just didn't know, and now
I didn't know it. Yeah, it seemed like we're breaking free.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
And it does kind of remind me a lot of like the Q narrative in it. I almost feel like it was sort of like a test run where it's like, hey, we have this insider in the government and he's like, trying to white hat us and stuff. And that's what this Satoshi Nakamoto guy was.
Right.
But that whole story is just pushed by like cypherpunks and transhumanists. You had Nick Szabo, who is a self-proclaimed transhumanist. You had Hal Finney, who is part of like the Alcor Life Extension Foundation. That's where the rich guys are like freezing themselves to come back later. Epstein has done the same thing. Peter Thiel is part of the Alcor Life Extension Foundation. And then you have Adam Back, who is actually like in bed with Cantor Fitzgerald, which is Howard Lutnick's company. But he also has Blockstream, which is funded by Horizon Ventures and Axis Strategic Ventures. And that is Li Ka-shing, who is one of the wealthiest men in China. And that's where you get like Chung Kong Holdings, you have CK Assets Holding Limited, and this kind of goes into like their market capitalization. But all the guys, Hal Finney's dead now, but all the guys that sort of came out from this have profited massively from this story. And when I look at like the SHA 256 coming from the NSA, it starts to really open up this whole history of cryptography. and how we used to use it for like military communications. And I stumbled on this research that has to deal with like the CX cipher machines specifically, because they were developed by this guy named Boris Wilhelm Hagelin, who used to work for the Nobel family way back in the day. The Brand Nobels, they were like huge, arms manufacturers and stuff. That's who the Peace Prize is named after. So he decided to create this company that would basically encrypt messages that countries could pass back and forth to each other. And it was like during wartime and stuff, so they needed like secure private communications. And this cipher machine claimed to do that. Well, while that was happening, he was selling the backdoor key to the AFSAC, which was the precursor to the NSA. He was selling it to the B&D, which was the precursor to the ZFCH, which was like German intelligence, and then selling it to the CIA. So this whole time that, they're saying like, hey, you can communicate, it's secure, it's private. Meanwhile, intelligence agencies were literally getting the backdoor keys to that the entire time. You can look up like the Gentleman's Agreement. You can look up Operation GA, Operation Spartan, Operation Thesaurus, and it kind of just talks about how Crypto AG, this cryptography company, was purchased by the CIA and the BND. And since 1970, it was owned by them, sort of a joint ownership. And countries were still using those machines. And to me, that they call it the largest information coup of the century with this. And I think the exact same thing is what is happening with Bitcoin. And they're marketing it the same way, and they're saying it's secure, it's private. I don't know about you guys, but when the government tells me they can't spy on me, I don't believe that. And it just kind of seems like the same thing, but I think instead of being the largest intelligence coup of the 20th century, we're going to see the largest financial coup of the 21st century. And
well, now all of a sudden they're all into it. And,
yeah,
and there's nations adopting it, and there's legitimacy being brought to it, and if that doesn't make you really wonder what's next.
Well, how about the fucking
haven't
rug
been
pulls
alive.
that these
Yeah,
guys
right.
had the nerves to do, like Melee down in Argentina,
Yep.
the Trump, a couple of those Trump coins.
The Haktua coin, they build an internet celebrity, they pump up a coin, and then they pull the rug out, and then they just say screw the girl, and all of a sudden she's
Well, that's
screwed.
like Vegas shit, I mean, it's when you got these politicians getting involved in it. That's when it's like, what the heck's going on here? This isn't some like freedom of free banking system that we thought it was. Because the stuff they sell you, like I remember the one was like they were going to change Africa because crypto is going to take over the whole banking system of Africa, and people were going to be able to get loans through these crypto banks. I never saw any of that materialize. That was when I was like, oh shit, maybe this could change the world. But yeah, man. Where do you think we're headed with that? Do you think Trump's like trying to destroy the Fed and like just and bring in like a CBDC or?
Yes. Well, so it technically won't be like a CBDC because that would imply that it's all coming from like one location. But essentially, you are right in that all of these stable coins that are propped up by like J.P. Morgan and Morgan Stanley and Chase Bank and Goldman Sachs and all of those, like they're the ones that are funding all of these stable coins, and they're going to make stable coins the standard issue currency, I believe, for the world. I think that these things are going to be the one world currency. If I had to put a guess on any specific one, I think it would be Tether, right. Because it's directly pegged to the dollar, but it's also tied up with like Brock Pierce, who was an Epstein client, and Howard Lutnick, our Secretary of Commerce. His company is actually the custodian that runs Tether. So there's a huge conflict of interest there, but nobody seems to care. And they're passing all this pro-crypto legislation and stuff. I think there's going to be a handful that you'll be able to choose from, but they're all going to be compromised, co-opted. Because, I mean, we've even seen, I don't know if you guys saw, but after Trump announced the 100% tariffs on China, there was that short seller that ended up shorting like millions of dollars of Bitcoin right beforehand. that's going to be every day, everywhere, where they're gonna
Wow.
they can make the market as volatile as they want.
Yeah.
And we can be realistic and say like fiat currency is shit. It doesn't really help any of us. The thing is that with fiat currency, if the dollar crashes, the government is responsible. If a company's stock tanks, the company is responsible. When crypto tanks, that's just the will of the market. So it absolves everybody that's involved. They can, get in group chats or just hang out at each other's houses. There doesn't even need to be like an official Bilderberg crypto thing or anything like that. They can just text each other and say like, hey, I'm about to short, 1.5 billion, of these cryptocurrencies. Make sure you sell. And that's what's happening.
And even deeper, there's like no protections for anybody in this market. Like if things crash to the point where people lose everything, there's going to be no recovery. There's nothing to back it whatsoever. So it's really mighty convenient that they avoid any and all pretty much oversight and just have free reign to do whatever they see fit with the currency, and that's going to destroy people.
Absolutely. And the bigger part of it is that cryptocurrency is the only currency that is associated with an energy cost to mint. I'm sure you guys remember like when people were mining their own Bitcoins, they were saying like, hey, there's too much draw on the power. Look at this carbon footprint. We need to shut all these down.
Oh yeah, Elon tanked it during the bull run because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and so what's happening is like you have the climate change narrative and the carbon narrative. You have carbon taxes, carbon credits. Well, if we have an energy-based finance system, then the only people that like it'll essentially be, hey, you're going to be allotted these energy certificates, which are crypto. And energy certificates were actually like a very, very prominent part of the original technocracy movement, where they said, hey, this is, our fake money system isn't an efficient way to do things. We need to measure every single sort of interaction that happens within a society, and we need to attribute an energy level to it. And then from there, they are able to penalize you or reward you based on, the amount of energy that you're consuming, not consuming, so on and so forth. And it sort of creates this thing that's called transactionalism, and that stems all the way back to like the New School for Social Research. This guy named John Dewey, who's considered the father of education for America in the 20th century, and it talks about how like giving childbirth would, like, that's why they have carbon footprints of how much having children is. That's why they carbon footprint our vehicles. That's why they carbon footprint all of these pollution narratives with like the ESG stuff that was sort of going on. Is they're trying to vilify the production of carbon. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm carbon.
You right?
Everything that plants eat is carbon.
I know.
So if we're vilifying carbon, that's us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No. I always say, like, when they say, "Oh, they want a greener universe, greener future," that means less of us.
Yes, absolutely. And it's Larry Fink has talked a lot about the tokenization of everything, and essentially what that means is like assigning a token ID and putting everything on the chain. That is not just money; that's assets. That's the food that you eat at the grocery store will have its own token ID. All the way, like, essentially they want to get to a granular level where every single strawberry that you buy from Walmart is going to have a token ID associated, and they're going to know that you bought that strawberry.
How do you think they're going to sell it to the masses, like, in order to get them to accept it? If you had to guess.
Yeah, I think what they're going to do is they're essentially going to make it really inconvenient to use the dollar or digital or physical cash. I think they're going to incentivize people to use crypto. So whether that's like earn back rewards or
sure, they already do that.
Yeah, or like this thing will
Staking.
be half price.
Yeah.
This will be half price if you pay with Ethereum.
Or that too. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Sure.
And I think that what's happening, especially right now, is that they are trying to devalue the dollar so much that it becomes necessary to move over to crypto in order to transact. The reason that I think that is because Trump appointed Scott Bessent Another Soros guy, by the way, even though he claims they hate Soros. But Scott Bessent was actually responsible for crashing the pound in 1992 on behalf of George Soros. And then he did the same thing to the Japanese yen a few years later. And now he's our Treasury Secretary. And I know that he's just going to do the same. He's like their crash guy. And now he's in charge.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So he was involved in their governments.
He was basically, you know how they set up the run for like the Great Depression. They ended up getting like everybody afraid and like pulling their money out of the banks and stuff like that. And that crashed the dollar. It was essentially something like that, with a couple more shells behind it. But he wasn't officially like part of the government in any capacity.
Sure, they just brought him as the brains.
Yeah, and so we have like digital IDs coming. You know, they're making it to where you have to upload your driver's license for age verification stuff. And what people don't realize is that all of us have tokenized IDs associated with our accounts. So anytime you go to like a post of yours, you see a long string of numbers at the end of the URL. That is that post's post ID. You also have a user ID. You have device IDs for whatever computer or phone that you're using. And so it becomes this way for them to automatically just sort of associate things with each other. So the things that you say are then associated with your driver's license. And it's all on this blockchain that they are creating. And it's permanent, and it'll, you know, work with, I believe, things like the contact tracing Bluetooth stuff, where it's like, hey, you ended up going super close to this person of interest that we have, and now we need to investigate you, you know, because you were within close proximity, or like you purchased something from this, you know, company, or you purchased this product, whatever that looks like. And I do think it'll essentially eliminate the gray market. So you won't ever be able to just like sell your buddy a used anything without having to transact through the cryptocurrency exchange, because that item has a token ID. You have your bank ID. He has his. If it's ever transferred, there needs to be a proof of transfer of ownership. That's where like the NFT bullshit came from.
What is the point of all this?
It's so that they can
Total
know,
control.
Yeah, it's total information awareness. They just want to know everything that everyone has all the time.
In order to advertise to them, or to just simply control them in general, based just for whatever, however they want.
Well, they call data the digital gold,
using
digital oil.
Us,
yeah,
as humans to get their agenda through.
Yeah, because you know, when I don't know about you guys, but when I grew up, like a huge part of the NWO was the digital currency part, the mark of the beast. Yeah, you know, and yeah. That's essentially all crypto is, but it also, you know, provides like identifiers for every single transaction, every single person on the chain, and everything. So it is essentially like this top-down view where they have all the resources, the AI compute power, and the backdoor access to see what everyone's doing, but none of us have those things to see what they're doing. And I think that's a huge part of it as well. And
how about like the privacy coins? Do you think that's even exists, or is just a ploy to get people to pretend like they have some sort of privacy?
I think that some of them are well-intentioned, but I think that they will eventually be taken over, whether that is brute force through mining, whether that is, you know, because you have proof of work, you have proof of stake, and with like the amount of data centers that there are, and the AI and the compute power and stuff that's here, like 50%, over 50% of the Bitcoin hash rate is being accomplished by 2 companies. Which, you know, 10 years ago we would have been like, what?
What? Yeah.
Like, how does someone have that much compute power?
Sure.
Does Howard Milstein have anything to do with either of those companies?
I don't.
You know what Howard Milstein is?
I don't believe I've heard of Howard Milstein.
That's a New York City billionaire who happens to be a massive property owner in the city of Niagara Falls, and there's a big push to build a massive AI.
Oh yeah. Well, they already get. Don't they have a
right
Bitcoin,
in the heart of
a
this town
huge
right
Bitcoin? Like in the middle of like the shittiest area, they're building these Bitcoin mining things. Don't they have those over by like Highland?
Yeah, no, there's some off of Buffalo Avenue. Some of the old chemical plants just got converted into some Bitcoin mining factories, but it goes deeper. That all that property owned by NFR down by the casino, all of that's highly sought after right now, and it's like subject to public fight. Howard Milstein and the people behind NFR, uh, who have billions and billions of dollars behind them, want to take that whole parcel of land and build a big data center to one, control AI, and two, to mine Bitcoin.
Wait,
And there's a
wait.
lot of local discussion about it right now. And there's a lot of people who are supporting it because there's really not much else that's happening here. And regrettably, it would undoubtedly provide a huge tax boost to the city, and solve some short term thinking problems. And it scares me that a lot of people around here don't think long term when it comes to stuff like that. And I've got lots of questions, and I wonder if you can answer any of them for me, Seven Seas.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the number one thing that comes to mind for me is, all of those tax benefits are going to be offset by the rising electricity costs. It's no secret that energy costs have been rising across the country for the entire year, and there is a direct correlation with the amount of increase of people's energy bills with the amount of data centers that are being built. And some people have reported, even personally to me, that their bill is up, 30 to 50% what it was this time last year. And that's with just a couple of data centers. They have projected data centers in the thousands. You can actually go to datacentermap.com and go look at it if you guys want to pull that up, actually.
The new push around here, is these smart meters, and I'm sure all of these feed into these data centers, and you just get probably utterly false numbers. And they say, oh well, it's digital. The algorithm is correct, or however you want to put it.
Yeah,
And it's just wild that we're at this point.
absolutely. Do me a favor, click on the map at the top.
I did. I don't know. What happened.
Click explore map maybe.
Oh, I see.
And then just zoom in on the United States.
All those blue dots are wait. What are the blue dots?
Every blue dot is a data center.
Holy shit!
John, take it to where we are, because there seems to be a few right up there.
There it is.
Calls, yeah.
Wow,
Bam.
right there.
Zoom all the way in. I want to see exactly where it is, please.
You should be able to click on the dot too, and I think it tells you who it is.
Yeah, see if you can. I'm curious.
Or like hover over it. No?
No.
So are
Oh, Niagara
go
Digital
over-
Campus. Niagara
Go
Digital
over to
Campus.
go over to the roads. Go. You see how there's the roads? Go over to. Holy shit! That isn't even where I thought it was. That is like
That's in the project area.
that's straight in the hood.
yes, in the
That's-
hood.
Yeah, that's just the first build on that NFR property. If I don't want to speak out of turn without confirmation, but I want to say I'm fairly certain that's already on NFR property. That property I mentioned that Milstein owns. That's fucking wild.
Yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say.
And like you can go up into the search bar and you can just type like a company like Google, and it'll show you where all their, probably not all of their data centers, but most of where their data centers are. Yeah, it's crazy. Like they have worldwide one. It is funny though, because Palantir doesn't show up on here. I don't think ones that have like defense contracts are allowed to be tracked.
Oh
No.
yeah. This is
Oh,
wild.
there you have the reason for the defense contract.
Yeah.
And
So-
the green ones.
So is Palantir going to be building these things all over our country? Are they already started?
So Palantir, the reason that they're such an issue is the amount of access that they have to everything. They were very like ingrained in the NSA 20 years ago, and actually helped build the software that the NSA used to do their mass surveillance that ended up, coming out under the Snowden thing or whatever.
Yeah.
Essentially, I think that they are sort of like the access broker. So they are building like a one-size-fits-all API for like government regulation, and then they are selling that to various governments so that they have all of the information on the back end. I think they're less involved in like the actual infrastructure building, but they facilitate contracts and stuff that help fund these data centers getting built.
So what's like your biggest fear with them? Like what do you where do you see where do you see the U.S. in like 10 to 15 years if we stay on this course of AI?
I think that we are very quickly approaching a point where everybody is sort of living in their own version of reality that is completely distorted, because they say that perception is everything. And I think that what's happening is we're getting this over reliance on AI as like a source of truth, a source of creativity and stuff. And I think that the stuff that has happened with smartphones on our attention span and our ability to critically think, I think those are being slowly eroded. I do think that sometime in the very near future that we will be a digital currency only. We are actually about to launch 6G in the next year, and that is going to be basically involving like the Internet of Bodies. So most of the scientists and medical experts and stuff talk about how with 6G your body will be the tower. So they are trying to take nanosensors and nanotechnology and get it into our body via vaccines, supplements, even putting it in food items and stuff. I'm not sure if you guys saw this story, but last year they were talking about how if we put mRNA in lettuce, do we have to classify it as a drug in stores? And that's sort of where we are now is, and this all started with like the GMO stuff. That was like, hey, we're just going to take strawberries and make them like stay fresh longer and stuff like that. But what they're actually doing is manipulating it on the nano scale. And they are introducing things like mRNA into edibles and vaccines and drug supplements and stuff. So I think what we're slowly seeing is that everyone's body will eventually be connected, whether that is through a brain chip, whether that is through flooding your body with sensors. They're talking about putting wearables on plants.
Yeah, what was RFK talking about? I thought you were about to say humans, the wearables on the humans. I didn't even realize you're dropping plants on us. Tell us about that, please.
Yeah, so RFK basically has said that his goal is to like mandate wearables for the United States. And they're going to be using it as like a health measurement thing, so that they can constantly have access to your biometrics, where you're moving, your geolocation data, essentially your smartphone, but it can also like read your pulse and your oxygen blood levels.
Keep you alive longer, right?
Yeah, that's
sure.
what they say.
Sure.
And
we don't need to eliminate 50% of the world's population, right, Bill Gates?
What happens when somebody hacks these systems?
Yeah, that's a real question.
Holy shit.
There's no accountability. There's going to be no accountability because
That's for the greater good, though, Dave.
Yeah. But yeah, that's that part. The spooky part is there's no accountability to any of this stuff that they're installing because there's no human behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I look at like the weather modification stuff, right? Where they talk about like pumping graphene oxide and aluminum and things like that. Graphene oxide is the best friend of the technological like transhumanist agenda, because that is a highly conductive material. It's small enough to bypass the blood-brain barrier. It is able to be manipulated with wireless signals and can then be used to essentially create their own electrodes within your brain to manipulate your neurons.
So is this why Ian from Minds.com pushes graphene so heavily and got his own coffee named Ian's Graphene Dream?
Probably, yeah.
Oh my god, what is that?
That makes a whole lot of sense. Oh man, and they sell it, and they sell it like it's the greatest thing you'll ever have. They sell it like it's gonna be so soft on your stomach, you're gonna get that energy buzz you need. It's not gonna give you that heartburn that you might get from a brew. It's the best thing going. Ian's Graphene Dream. We sell so many copies. I've heard that so many times, and now I just gotta wonder. I just gotta wonder.
Well, they're telling you. It's in the name.
Yeah, if you guys just go look up graphene oxide and put like electrodes or put graphene oxide effects on the brain or graphene oxide, like they're graphene oxide wireless signals, and you can see like they have white papers on these things, they have studies on these things, and essentially I think we're going to get to the point where all of us are connected, we don't even know it, and they're able to remotely manipulate our thoughts by sending various wireless signals, whether that's through our smartphone. Yeah, I hear it like talking about how it's like dealing with the calcium signaling in the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland, and then that, you know, in turn controls your circulatory system, your adrenal gland. They can use that to remotely spike your cortisol levels and make you feel more stressed out. Yeah, like
they're already doing that.
Yeah, like these things are like targeted individuals have been impacted by this technology.
And how do you even combat
I believe I
something
know
like that
a
as a
few,
person?
and now I believe them even more after kind of seeing this breakdown here. You know,
Grow your own
you could
foods,
definitely
don't
target
take
somebody.
vaccines.
Yeah. Don't hold a
rid of your
fucking cell
phone.
phone in your hand.
Yeah.
There's, I mean, yeah, a bunch of things that you'd have to completely change your life for, but I mean, it's almost seeming like it's time.
But the cell phone is like the direct shot. You know what I mean? That thing
Yeah.
is
Yeah, how are
going
you
right
able to not have one?
Oh.
It's like I can't picture a world where you don't have one.
I wish we
And,
could go back to that world.
Yeah.
I mean, so do I, but like how? How?
We can't. I mean,
It starts with us.
It's too far gone.
Is there, I mean, can you just use a normal flip phone, normal to old phone, just to make calls and text family and friends, and then go on your computer to go on Twitter?
I would say that all of those devices do still have Bluetooth, and they also still operate off of the radio frequency. And I believe that it would still be subject to manipulation.
Well, and besides the point, with the talk of this digital currency and everything, it's going to get to a point where they say you got to have your phone on you if you want to pay for something.
Yeah. Or a chip.
I mean, they're literally forcing you to pay.
Yeah, people
They're
are
literally
already
forcing
fucking
you
putting
into the
in-
microwave without a way out.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you have you know, everyone always talks about like Neuralink, Elon's they call them BCIs, that's brain computer interface, that's like the jargon that they use. But you have like you have Synchron, you have BlackRock Neurotech, no relation to BlackRock, that's just Peter Thiel's brain chip company. You have, I mean, there's so many, and I've actually like mapped out like this end game that I kind of think is going to be like the ultimate like closed loop system, and sort of where we're headed. So this might actually be exactly what you were looking for with that question.
Oh, I see here.
So we kind of touched on like the digital currency stuff. I sort of see that as like the blood of this whole system. It's what keeps everything moving, keeps, you know, people doing the things they're supposed to. And then you have like obviously the quantum computers, Microsoft's Majorana 1 chip, Google Willow, IonQ, Rigetti, D-Wave, artificial intelligence, XAI, OpenAI, Gemini, Copilot, Llama, AMD, Perplexity. And then you have the global human computing grid, Neuralink, Onward, Synchron, BlackRock, Neurotech. All of those are going to be wireless. They're going to interact with AI. So AI is sort of like the interface that we are using to communicate with machines in the interim. And eventually we'll see a merging of humans and machines. They call them organoids or cyborgs. I know it seems silly because it's like a sci-fi term, but that is
it's
like
not
what
though, dude. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're talking about like growing human brains on microchips that has been successfully done, and that's really, really dark because it's like, how do you think that brain mass feels? You know, like what is its existence? And it just seems really fucking dystopian.
Twisted.
Yeah.
Fucking twisted. There's no
Yeah.
other way to put it.
Well, I think those people are already walking around us and they're already out there. I mean,
They might be lighting fires in your city right now.
Humanoid robots?
It's possible. You ever see Mark Zuckerberg spaz out me?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Bro, leave Mark out of this. Dude does jujitsu now. Come on. Come on. He's accepted the fight bro culture. He's good. He's solid.
yeah.
Trust me.
Oh, yeah.
Trust me.
Him surfing with the American flag, drinking a beer.
Oh yeah. You know, he's a meat and potatoes guy. He likes to support MAGA. He's a good guy. He's a
one of
good man.
us.
You know, he spent time in the woods. He hunts. He does all those things. He's a good man.
Yeah.
Here's a random question. It might kind of has to do with this, but not really. Do you think that we live in a virtual reality?
Could you define virtual reality?
Like our like an individual unit of consciousness.
So sort of like a
that-
computer simulation type of.
Pretty much, yeah.
I don't think so necessarily. I think it's one of those things where, you know, the burden of proof is always on the person that makes the claim, and I haven't ever gotten sufficient enough evidence to make me feel like we are.
neither.
I
I was
think.
just looking for your opinion on it. because
Yeah, I
you
do
go
think-
so deep into this. I wonder where you go into like beyond our own minds.
Spiritually,
you know what
I guess you could say, right?
I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah, I guess you could say that, or what?
I
you
do
know.
think that we do live in a simulated reality in the sense that, you know, all the mainstream headlines are fake. All politicians are actors. All this like infighting that we see, like all that's fake. And all of that is basically just as like a distraction. And I'm convinced that it goes back 6,000 years. Some people will, you know, say like America used to be a real country. And I'm like, man, that Freemasons and the French were, you know, basically responsible for helping set up the revolution. Those were the same like Sabbatean Frankists that helped overthrow the king back during the French Revolution. And, you know, we've just kind of been like going through phases of different names, different faces, but still the same people in charge.
Same network, same bloodlines.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I
Same
think that,
handful of folks, 50 different generations.
yeah. And I think it all goes back to like the Silk Road. And I think that there was huge, sort of enrichment for particular families. The Rothschilds used to be called the Bowers or the Backhours back then. And they were actually a huge prominent family on the Silk Road 6,000 years ago.
Yeah, we're talking about the original Silk Road, not the cocaine Silk Road.
Right. Yeah. And, you know, I think that they sort of used religion, in a sense, to, like, they spread Christianity to the West, they spread Islam to the East, and they've had them fight each other for 6,000 years so they can be the people in the middle, controlling all of the commerce and controlling all of the politicians and controlling the money.
Yeah, there's been
Well,
a blueprint.
they've been mighty
blueprint.
successful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've had a blueprint for quite a while, and that's I'm coming to that realization. And it's all these secret societies. It's like a network for them. You know, it's how they can handpick their next leaders, and you know, once people start to realize that it kind of opens a lot of doors to opening your mind to all these other stuff that's hard to understand.
Absolutely. Yeah, and when I first I kind of came under the realization after I was like digging into Rome, because I was like, what happened to polytheism? I'm just curious. So I started looking into Rome and like when polytheism ended, and it turns out it was like the Canaanites that were worshiping Mesopotamian deities. There's this guy named Eusebius of Caesarea that came into Rome. He got really close with Constantine's father, who was emperor at the time, and started grooming Constantine. Constantine was the first like Christian emperor, essentially, of Rome. And coincidentally, Eusebius also went with his mother on a pilgrimage to Palestine to find the original pieces of the cross 300 years after Jesus was crucified, and help establish like a validity to Roman Catholicism, essentially, and was there during the setup of the Nicene Creed. So he was like helping to establish Roman Catholicism, but was contorting it in a way to where it was essentially the worshiping of the same Mesopotamian deities that he followed.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Man. Do you think do you buy into Albert Pike and his prophecies of the three world wars? Are you familiar with that at all?
Yeah. I've read the letters. I think that they are true. Now, whether that was, you know, they knew the game plan loosely back then, and you know the ways to get there, or
This is what we had to do in order to get complete control. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of like how I always come back to all these big personalities that are pushing like now, like that's like the new thing. like this past
Yep.
year. You got Candace Owens, you got Nico the Muslim. You got these big influencers are all pushing religion, and it just brings back to that prophecy of the Third World War that he was talking about, which was going to be between all the religions, and they would just crush each other to the point where it would be easy to just take over and have everybody under one umbrella.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's it's actually kind of funny because you guys know about Project Bluebeam, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
Where it's this whole thing where an alien invasion is going to be staged, and they're going to use that as like the pretext to usher in like the one world government. I'm almost convinced that it may end up being like a fake religious thing. There's actually a Washington Post article from 1999 that was talking about how in like the very early 90s they were like trying to figure out how to get Saddam Hussein out of office, and what one of them sort of suggested was, well, what if we just project a large holographic image of Allah in the sky telling the people of Iraq to abandon him and say he's a weak man and stuff. And it's like, if they were suggesting that, that means they had the technology in 1990. And here we are, 35 years later, and, with the whole, like, courting people into these established religions, I think that could very well be the case, is they're gonna fake the rapture, and that's actually just gonna be what the mass culling.
I don't know if you saw at the Super Bowl, I think when it was in Vegas, if that was last year, but they had like a hologram of like a football going all the way like across the strip from the football stadium. On top of Mandalay Bay was a field goal post, and you could see it from the entire city, and it was just a hologram of this huge football going through the field goal post, and it was like promoting the Super Bowl. And we always see these weird rituals with the Super Bowl, the drone one that they had a couple years back. So yeah, dude, that they could definitely project something into the sky and just make everybody go bonkers.
Yeah, especially with like the drone tech that they have now. Like, I'm seeing these like light shows, and it's like, those are little companies. Imagine they had like DoD funding, behind one of these shows, and you could very well get like a realistic depiction of the deity in the sky.
For sure, and not to mention all the other things that you can do with these crazy drones. I saw a video of a drone shooting fire the other day. That was interesting, and I'm sure that's a sign of many things we'll be seeing in the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if you heard Alex Karp, what he would like to do to his enemies. He said that he would like to have drones filled with piss and laced with fentanyl that he could spray his enemies with, or his people that disagreed with him.
Yep, absolutely. And he's the number one defense contractor of the United States in 2025.
Yeah,
he's gotten the most contracts. Yeah.
Got to put the money in the right place, I guess.
Absolutely. Oh man, it's crazy too, because like you look at him and he appears like what I would imagine like the average meth head in my city acts like very twitchy and tweaky and is like over enthusiastic about like extremely fucked up things.
Yeah.
To touch back onto your like where we're gonna end up or what this sort of looks like, nuclear plants are exploding, not like blowing up, but big tech is essentially investing in revitalizing the American nuclear industry, and that's what is going to power like all of these AI data centers. You have Bill Gates actually reopened 3 Mile Island.
No way.
Yeah, and that is going to power his Microsoft data centers.
I drove past that doing an event right near it. I saw the reactors. I can confirm they are definitely in fact running. There was steam coming out of them.
Yep, and that's backing like his Azure cloud infrastructure, his Microsoft Copilot AI, and you also have Google, who is opening up nuclear facilities as well to power their data centers. Amazon, you have Meta. And essentially what they're trying to do is create unlimited energy to run this infrastructure, because the massive amounts of data that it takes the massive amounts of energy that it takes to make AI compute, to hash Bitcoin, and all of these things. And essentially, they're going to get all of the energy for that, and they're getting government contracts to open these up. We're not getting trickle down from that. They're going to sell their leftover energy and make more money off of it. Meanwhile, we're having to subsidize their data centers and stuff in the meantime with rising energy costs and things like that. Yeah, it's like I said, people call me black pilled a lot, and I'm like, look, man, if we can't have a candid conversation about where we are because you're afraid of it, then
You're afraid of it.
Like,
yeah, we're fucked. Exactly, man.
Yeah.
The blinders.
Dude, it's a lot to
and the
process.
fear.
All of this.
oh yeah,
Sometimes I don't have words to respond. I'll just make a noise. But I'm here.
No,
man,
faces and words, faces and noises and gasps are what you're gonna get. Man, I hope you've enjoyed being here tonight, and I mean, obviously we've still got a few minutes left or whatever, but I want to be the first to actually say this and say thank you very much for coming on, man. And I'd love, and I'm sure everybody here would agree, we'd like to make this a regular thing. You're a wealth of knowledge, and I think this audience would love to hear and see quite a bit more of it.
Absolutely. You guys have been fantastic. Great hosts. I will say I've been on a couple of podcasts and I'll touch a certain subject and they're like, whoa, hold on, wait a minute. And
no, we want to go there. Let's go deeper. Let's get sued.
Well,
I did take that back.
You can't squeeze blood from a turnip. If you stay poor, that's the cheat code.
A non-effective mind is a mind that doesn't have every single possible angle put into it. You have to analyze if you want to try to make any sense of this craziness that's in our world. And even if something seems like it's too far-fetched, you're doing yourself, I think, as a person a disservice not to at least like open your ears and listen and try to explore the possibility. Whether it's far-fetched or not, you really don't know. And perspective is key. And I know on this show our theory is we want to hear it all, whether we agree with it or not. We want to hear it all, and we want to get a chance to respond to it. And
Absolutely.
I think that's
With that,
I wish more people had that spirit to them.
It's okay to not know. Like all these people are like on X, these huge accounts, like they're the end all, the be all of whatever their agenda they're trying to push. For me, it's just like, man, I'm learning something new every day. And a lot of these accounts, it seems like they want to keep a certain narrative in a certain direction.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's one of those things too, where like, if I think that it has impact and it's like actively, part of this agenda or something, like nothing's off limits. My only allegiance is to the truth. I'm not in like these group chats with people. I'm not part of like an organization. Like I'm kind of a lone wolf. And a lot of them, I'll touch on a subject or something with people that I've considered peers in the past, and they'll take a different position. And I'm like, it's fine if we differ, but you realize you're like towing the line of the agenda, right? And there's always this like uncomfortableness to it.
Yeah.
Like I call out crypto and they're like, well, I'm sponsored by a privacy coin. I'm like, well, it's not a fucking privacy coin.
All right, well, then if you're worried about it, don't state your opinion, but let your audience make their own damn decision.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things where like, I understand that to the uninitiated, the things that I'm kind of talking about are insane, but let's look back at like the moon landing. And if you would have told anybody the day the moon landing happened that it was entirely faked, they would have met you with the same amount of bewilderment and said like, what do you mean? How could the government wouldn't lie to us? And like Russia is going along with it. And China says that we landed on, and it's like, if you realize that happened in 1969 and here we are, 70 years later, and the suspension of disbelief, I think, is necessary because we look at things like that. We look at the fact that 9/11 was partially an inside job where they openly killed 3,000 Americans in broad daylight just because we've seen like with Israel's escalation with Iran, for example, like we didn't need a terrorist attack. They just wanted to do it.
Well, they didn't want to pay for asbestos abatement in the building.
Yeah, they're all of a sudden they're 5 days away from.
They were looking. They were looking at an astronomical figure that they would have had to pay in somewhat of a short-term fashion. That building was loaded with asbestos, and there was orders and edicts that came down that they had to start to work towards full abatement and removal of it from the building. due to the severity of the building and the importance of that building in the world's trade. And, insurance policies aren't going to cover that. So, what is one to do? Let's all come together and solve a bunch of problems with one boom.
And that's where you get Larry Silverstein and his 9/11 insurance scam. You
But I
guys know,
wanted you to say the name. I couldn't
yeah,
remember.
yeah. So Larry Silverstein's actually part of the UJA Federation of New York. And the UJA Federation of New York actually has some interesting people on it. So you have Robert Stephen Capito, who is part of BlackRock and Blackstone Financial Group with Larry Fink. You also have the JCRC of New York, which is Dr. Bennett Golub. He's also part of the UJ, or was. Bennett Golub and Charles Halak were actually responsible for setting up the system that would become BlackRock's Aladdin. And 9/11 transitioned us from an asset, sort of like monetary value base, to a speculative based economy, because of the risks associated with things like 9/11, the asbestos stuff. And thus Aladdin has been able to rig the game and say, this company's too risky to invest in. Don't invest in that. And then you'll have all the other VC capital companies follow suit. And that all stems from Sun Microsystems that ended up coming from Oracle. Sun Microsystems was funded by that Kleiner Perkins and Sequoia Capital. That's where you got people like Eric Schmidt, who used to run Google, that's now on like the president's AI council and stuff. And Sun Microsystems back in the 90s were people that were from Mossad that were infiltrating Sun Microsystems and basically setting up a backdoor there. And then Oracle purchased them. And now Larry Ellison's one of the richest men on the planet.
So when are you coming back, man?
Whenever you guys want. I'm always
Just go on that calendar and take all the slots.
You should just pick like one specific topic for like, and then just be, hey, I want to come on with this. What do you guys think?
No,
And then,
next time we'll bang a
boom.
topic. We'll stick with it and we'll just we'll go deep.
Phenomenal
In it. 'Cause I
introduction
know we
to
jumped
you,
around a
man.
lot today, dude, but that was incredible. Like, you are definitely a wealth of knowledge and like an encyclopedia where you could just pull it out of your head and go, which is a very rare thing. So, yeah, dude, thank you for coming on, man. And we definitely got to do this again. Let's communicate. We'll talk about some topics that you think are super important, or I might think's real important, and maybe collaborate or just get it out there to the masses as best we can.
And speaking of the masses, I'm going to make you full screen right now. Tell everybody exactly where they can find you.
So you can find me on all of the Department of Defense websites. You have Twitter, you have YouTube, you have Rumble, which is Peter T.
Right? Isn't it so fucked we have to use these sites?
Rumble is Peter Thiel?
Yeah, Peter Thiel and Howard Lutnick.
And Dan Bongino.
And Dan Bongino blocked me because I was calling him a coward.
Yeah,
Oh,
he retweeted me and he said yeah, we had a big thing. I was wondering if he was working security for the door at Obama's pizza parties, because he was
the hot dog party, man.
Yeah, I just happened to ask that question and it went super viral, and he didn't like that.
Oh, I'm sure. They hate being caught.
Yeah.
Is, I think, the biggest thing.
Because the time frame lined up exactly with the WikiLeaks. Like, he would have been Obama's detail, right, when that shit supposedly happened,
Absolutely.
It's all connected. It's all connected.
Yeah, and now here he is in Trump's FBI.
Yeah.
Covering up the Epstein files and shit.
Yeah.
I do, if you guys don't mind, I'd just take a quick second to like give a message to your audience so it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah, please.
So the thing that people have to understand is that, at least in our entire lifetimes, there has been a global coordinated effort to make you feel stupid, to make you feel incapable, to make you confused, to make you feel afraid and shit like that. And the reason that they dump all of this money and all of this time and all of this energy into the theatrics and stuff is because we are on an individual level capable of incredible things. and they hate you for your ability to do that because they want you born a slave. They want you, basically just a robot that is just taking instructions and doing processes. Don't forget that, and make sure that you are able to view yourself as the human that we are, and look at our entire history of all the great wonders that we built and all the incredible people throughout history, and realize that all of us are capable of that same greatness. And I think that needs to be understood when it comes to my message of you should put faith in yourself. I don't think people should have hero. You should be your own hero. You should be expanding your skill sets. You should be setting up your own food and water aggregation and energy aggregation systems, and think for yourself. Do your own research, and understand that at the end of the day, they're trying so hard to do this because of how capable and how endless the possibilities are for each of us.
Amazing.
Absolutely,
Yeah, dude.
absolutely. I mean, I can't think of a better way to say goodnight. I mean, you said it all. You summed up all my thoughts, and I'll tell you what, we can't wait to have you back.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as simple as that. We can't wait to have you back. So with that being said, I want to take a second and thank everybody for spending their evening with us. We are the Return to Cappy, and we want answers. And I'll tell you what, we're not going to be silenced with us, with you, and with the whole world. Just like 7C said, we can take this thing back. It's not over. It's not too far gone. So if you're not in it, join the fight, share this content, share 7C's content, and be sure to stay tuned to our page, because there's going to be a whole heck of a lot of good stuff coming in the near future. So with that being said, for 7C's, for Dave, for John, I'm Big Sean. Take care of yourself and each other, and stay tuned, because we're coming for some answers, folks. Take care.